Now, during the call between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, Putin also agreed to pause strikes on energy targets in Ukraine. Trump and his special envoy saying that Russia's acceptance to stop those attacks is a big step toward ending the war in Ukraine. But obviously, not everyone in Ukraine agrees with that sentiment. And we're going to talk more about that now with our senior reporter, Norris Trent, who joins me from Uman, which is in the heart of the country. Catherine, what kind of reaction have you been getting from people there?
It's been so striking speaking to people from across Ukraine immediately following the call and then on to this Wednesday. How many of them feel very not optimistic at all, pessimistic or cynical, even skeptical about these talks. Many people said they didn't even bother to look at the content of that phone call between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump in great detail, because they said they didn't believe a word that came out of the Russian leader's mouth, and didn't feel optimistic that Trump could bring about a peace deal which would be good for Ukraine. So while people have been to some extent wanting to hear the top lines coming out of it, very few people here believe that this will result in peace immediately in Ukraine. They think that the Kremlin is going to be dragging its feet, and that they say, you know, Russia has broken ceasefire agreements before, so why should we believe them this time? You know, we need to remind our viewers that actually what the Kremlin, what Vladimir Putin agreed to in that Kremlin readout was a 30-day pause in Russia attacking energy infrastructure, not at all the 30-day overall ceasefire without conditions that the Ukrainian leader eventually agreed to. So the Ukrainians are being quick to point out that this is not what the Americans had been hoping for, and few people here feel it will make them safer. One woman we spoke to who's a medic from Western Ukraine, we spoke to her on the phone, and she said, look, how can we think we're going to be in a safer world when we're still hearing explosions in overnight attacks?
Absolutely. And those attacks continued again last night with drone attacks falling across the country.
Yeah, that's right. There were air raid alerts across Ukraine in many parts of the country, including where we were staying last night in the coastal city of Odessa. So the Ukrainian presidency saying some 40 Shahed Iranian-made drones were fired across Ukraine, even in the wake of that phone call between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. And the Ukrainians quick to say, look at Vladimir Putin's actions rather than his words. They are also saying that a school was hit in northern Ukraine, in the Sumy region, and at least one civilian was injured in the Kyiv region as well. So, you know, Ukrainians have become very used to these nightly alerts, and they carried on as usual, which I suppose accounts of some of this cynicism we're seeing. Meanwhile, the Russians are accusing Ukraine of striking an oil depot in the Krasnodar region there, and pointing to that, they say, as proof that the Ukrainians aren't serious about any ceasefire. Now, we know that President Zelensky and Trump are set to talk later on today. I mean, this looks very far from being near any kind of permanent and lasting truce. And many people here in Ukraine think, you know, that the Russians will be dragging their feet, trying to advance militarily or trying to give Trump some of what he wants to hear.
Catherine, thank you for that. That's Norris Trent reporting live for us from Ukraine.